Welcome back to the Ben Motorcycle Adventures podcast, your hub for everything off-road, dual sport, and adventure motorcycle. My name is John. I will be your host. This is episode number 16, Ben Motorcycle Adventures podcast. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And as always, thank you for subscribing. Whatever podcast directory, application, medium you are using, when you click subscribe, you will immediately be notified when we release new content. And if you haven't noticed, spend a fair amount of time releasing fresh content and interviewing great guests. Tonight is no exception. But again, if you subscribe, that helps you out. That helps us out. So make sure you do that. And if you're feeling froggy, leave us a review. We always appreciate the feedback. Like I said, another great collection of guests on the show tonight. We've got two guys. They both go by the name of Ian, ironically, or what are the odds? And they rode from Colorado to Prudhoe Bay. Then they started their Pan American adventure and rode all the way to Ushuaia, Argentina. I believe the trip was over 26,000 miles. Took 5 months to ride, and they only spent 2 months preparing to ride, preparing their bikes, preparing their gear, all that, which sounds like a lot, but for an adventure on this scale, that isn't much time. But me talking about it isn't going to do it much justice. Let's catch up with both the Ians, and I will talk to you on the flip side. Thank you for joining. So yeah, right out of the gate, you guys decided, crazy idea, we're going to ride from Prudhoe Bay to Ushuaia. I don't know if I said that correctly.
Yep.
Ushuaia, Argentina. And you actually rode to Prudhoe Bay too, right?
We did.
So where'd the idea come from? Where'd this, I don't want to call it crazy, but that's a pretty healthy ride. So what brought that on?
It's entirely a crazy idea, and it was mostly my idea. I got my first bike, a Honda XR70, when I was like 10. And I remember asking my dad, I said, "Hey, Dad, we should go camping on our bikes." And he said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe next summer. But what we should also do is ride from Alaska to Argentina." And I said, "Well, I don't know where Argentina is, but I'm in." And that was when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old. And I basically have been daydreaming about it in school since then. And Ian finally said yes. And then I had kind of a oh shoot moment of how on earth do you do this? I just had a friend say yes, and now it's no longer talk. I got to figure out how to make it happen.
Right on. So why did you say yes, Ian?
A couple reasons. I was just kind of at the point in my life where I needed to change things up. So the job wasn't working out great. I had applied to med school and didn't get in, and girl problems, the story. So all those sort of happened around the same time, and I called up Ian while he was at EMT school up in Wyoming and said, "Hey, were you serious about that?" And his response was, yeah, sure. And from then on, it was like 2 months until we hit the road, and just about every free moment was spent planning the trip.
Yeah, I would say 2 months isn't a ton of time to prep bikes and go through logistics and everything like that, right?
No. We met guys on the road who had been planning it for years. I think 5 years was the longest.
Okay. But hey, that's part of the adventure, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that was something that I wanted to ask you guys. Did you leave jobs, or did you leave school to go and take part in this?
Ian left his job, and I was just about to start a job, and I was actually about a week into it, and I sat down with the two guys that run this company, and I said, "Guys, I have a proposition for you. Can I just take 6 months?" And they were obviously confused because it was my first week. And I said, "I want to ride from Alaska to Argentina." And the one guy said, "We can't even ride to Alaska." And I said, "Really? That's the only part that I'm sure that I can do. That's the easy part, kind of." And the other guy said, "Yes, go. Call us when you get back." So I kind of pushed off a real job. I was out of school and I took a gamble, and they'll take me back next week, so it's all good.
Right on. Worked out. Okay.
So I worked for 2 years, and it was clear I wasn't moving up in the company, and loved the people, but it wasn't what I was looking to do long term. So I needed a change, and this was it.
Okay. So let me ask, if you guys could do it all over again, same circumstances, would you go on the ride?
100% yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%. That's encouraging. Big picture. How long did it take you, and how many miles was it approximately?
It took us 5 months and 6 days, door to door.
Wow, I thought it was longer than that. It sure felt longer than that. We were 26,414 miles.
Oh, man. That's a lot of seat time. That's a lot.
It is a lot of seat time.
Right on. Now, I know the answer to this, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't. What motorcycles did you guys choose to ride?
We chose the famous Kawasaki KLR 650. And we really chose it because I already had one, which was my dad's that he bought new in 2005 when I was 10. And I bought it from him when I was in college. And then I kind of thought I knew how to work on it. And I had read some articles that said it was a great bike. So I convinced Ian to get one, and we found one on Craigslist right before we left. And we set off.
Yeah, I just trusted him on that one.
Right on. So yeah, another big picture question for me. If you did this ride again, would you choose the KLR or would you look towards something different?
I definitely do not regret choosing the KLR. Were I to do it again, I mean, I would choose the KLR for sure. But maybe my next trip will be a little bit bigger bike, a little bit comfier bike. Okay. But no, I think it's the perfect bike for this trip.
Yeah, and speaking of the comfort and everything, and again, you guys were inside a 2-month window, which is crazy. What did you guys do to kind of specially prepare these bikes for such a long haul?
Ian got 2 extra seats with his Craigslist purchase.
Sweet.
So we put those on. We put on bark busters, crash bars. I put on skid plate.
I had highway pegs, which was really helpful.
So on the highway pegs, that allow you to put your feet further up? Is that what that was?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
Just a little further forward and up.
Right on.
We didn't really do all that much. It felt like a lot. And we also did the doohickey on...
I've heard about the doohickey, but I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Me neither.
To this day.
It's, what is it?
It's a chain tensioner bolt
unit
mechanism, but not for like the drive chain, for the timing chain. Okay. And it's famous for breaking in KLRs. So we figured take care of it beforehand, and then we wouldn't have to deal with it on the road.
So the doohickey just allows you to manually tighten that cam chain along the way, basically?
Not even manually.
It's just an upgraded machined part.
Okay.
Less likely to break. So basically we have no idea. all the guys on the internet were doing it.
Again, to this day, everybody else was doing it. So okay.
So we had to.
Okay, what about gear? Again, inside that 2-month window, what'd you guys bring along for the ride, in terms of tents, and obviously you're riding in some radically different climates. What did that look like?
In terms of gear, we kind of just went shopping together and got the best helmet that fit for us. We brought along our camping gear that we had previously. We were gifted some Lone Rider tents, the mini tent, which was phenomenal because it packed down really small and we didn't have a lot of extra room. for stuff. We both wore the Climb Carlsbad?
Carlsbad.
The Carlsbad suits, and they were really awesome. When it was super hot, which it was a lot of the time, everyone was sweating their butts off, so it didn't really matter whether it was a mesh suit, a full Gore-Tex one like we had. Like when it's 100 degrees, it's 100 degrees and you feel it in riding gear.
It's kind of like all bets are off, right? I mean, nothing's keeping you cool.
Yeah, you're pouring water bottles down your jacket all day. I'm not saying it was pleasant, but
We had guys sitting on bags of ice. They're so hot. There's a gas station. Look, a little big old bag of ice and just pour it down your shorts.
Right on. I'll bet the beers at the end of the day were pretty amazing on those days.
oh, they were great. Sometimes warm, but
Still a saving grace nonetheless.
absolutely.
You mentioned Lone Rider chipping in on some tents. Did anybody else help you out with gear or bike parts or anything?
I called Climb, and we had originally set out, we were 23 and 25, so we were going to make the next great documentary. So I called Climb, and I told them that, and they didn't quite believe me, which is good, because it didn't work out in the end.
Okay.
But they gave us a discount on some gear, which we greatly appreciated, because then we could afford the Carlsbad suits, and they were perfect for us.
Okay, back to the next great documentary, and I'm just going to chime in and say it's a pain in the ass to take photos and videos and things along the way on a long ride. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So I hear you there, but am I missing something with that comment, or you guys just didn't have time for it?
I think we just wildly underestimated how much effort it would be.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah, we were just trying to learn how to fix the bikes and figure out where we were going the next day.
I know what you mean. I've ridden by a lot of spots that were probably well deserving of an awesome photo, and just kept on riding. You go 300-400 miles in a day. It just kind of gets old pulling that stuff out. So totally understandable. Next question. Obviously,
Time-consuming process for sure.
yeah. So you get to Prudhoe Bay. That's where you guys want to launch from. What's your next move?
Anywhere south.
Anywhere south.
We were lucky enough to have a number of friends that put us up in Alaska. So we spent some time exploring Homer, Valdez, spent some time in Anchorage, met a lot of great people along the way, and stayed with some friends to try and keep the price down, because a lot of the time in Alaska it was raining and not exactly pleasant to be camping in that weather. So it was really nice that we had some friends to put us up for the night.
Yeah, and speaking of that, was there like a favorable time to head south out of Alaska just based on the seasons there and the continual daylight hours, whatever?
I think we were in the later half of the season up there. We got up there in August, and it started to change. The season started to change on us. And so it started getting a little cold and wet, and we were glad to get out of there. I think ideally you'd hit it a little earlier, but it was still 24 hours of light when we were up in Prudhoe, which was phenomenal.
And just such a weird experience. We showed up to camp one night after riding all day, thinking, it'll be 8 o'clock when we get off the bikes. No, it was 11:45 when we set up camp. Had no idea, because it was just as bright.
Yeah, that would be unreal if you've never experienced that.
Yeah.
That would throw me off for a loop. Hey, question, just kind of random. I had a friend that went up to Alaska this summer, and he told me there is some insanely large mosquitoes. Can you guys confirm that? Did you run into any?
Confirm.
Okay.
I think that was one of the top, maybe 3 craziest parts of the trip for me. They are so big, and there's so many of them. All the crazy tales and stories you hear about them, I believe them all.
And there are lots of mosquitoes all over Alaska, but once you're riding north on the Dalton Highway and you cross over into the North Slope, oh my word, it changes dramatically, and all of a sudden there are just more
thousands
mosquitoes than you can imagine.
So the Dalton's kind of a famed road too. What was it like riding that?
I had only read about it, and I heard of these trucks that try and drive you off the road, and they chuck up big rocks, and also the man-eating mosquitoes. And we only experienced the man-eating mosquitoes, but the rest of it was pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, the trucks do fly past you. But aside from that, no, it's a beautiful road. It's an interesting experience because the only reason it's really there is because of the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. So the whole valley that you travel through is just beautiful, but it's kind of an interesting relationship with the road and this big old pipeline that you're riding alongside. And the nature outside of it is beautiful, but you're always following this big old Alaskan pipeline.
It's just a matter of two worlds colliding, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then you get up to Prudhoe Bay, and there's nothing there. There's no town. I mean, there are a bunch of buildings that people live in and work in, but there's one general store and one gas station and nothing else. It is all oil derricks.
Big machines.
Big machines. It's a wild place.
It's like the Wild West. Huh. Curious, what did you guys eat along the way? Did you just stop along the way, or did you pack food, or how'd that go?
We did a bit of both. We didn't have too much space for extra food, so we would, say, stop for lunch at a convenience store, get a bite there, and then pack up dinner, cook dinner at our campsite.
Did a lot of the classic camping pasta.
A lot of pasta.
No rice?
What?
No rice?
No, we did some rice.
Some rice as well. We got our fair. Go ahead.
Well, I watched this documentary. I think it's called The Ride or something. These guys go from London to Beijing, and obviously the food and the cultures vary significantly along the way. I'm curious, when you guys are in South America, did you kind of experience the same thing, or was it hard to find things to eat? Did you get sick? That seems to be kind of a common theme on these rides too.
Oh, we got sick.
Well, I'll preface it by saying, thankfully, we only got sick in Mexico.
Yes.
Because we definitely ate a lot of sketchy street meat along the way. But we all got pretty tore up in Mexico.
Really, it was like the day that we crossed the border, everybody just started. It was ugly. We'll put it that way.
The tacos were so good, though. You couldn't stop eating them.
Yeah.
Just can't turn them away. I get it.
Exactly. No, the food the whole way was amazing. And, I mean, for the most part, we just ate in little street stands and taco shops in Mexico. What was shocking to me is that as soon as you get across the border into Guatemala, the tacos kind of stop, and it's beans, rice, and grilled chicken. And that's sort of the MO until you get to
Argentina,
really.
Right on. What was it like, food? How did the food differ in Argentina?
Argentina, they have a lot of empanadas, like little calzone things. They do a lot of red meat and red wine. So we switched our post-ride beer for a glass of wine, trying that out for size.
Perfect.
It was all right, yeah.
Right on. Anything memorable or significant that ride from Prudhoe down to the Mexican border? Obviously, there's some places there along the way you guys have never been. I looked through your Instagram profile to see if you went through Oregon. That's our home state. Looks like you traveled along the coast there. But anything that stands out in the States or Canada for you?
I think British Columbia stood out for me because I was very excited to get there and see it. And unfortunately, we hit it during the peak fire season. And I think we went like 6 days without seeing the sun.
Oh,
It was
wow.
just too smoky the whole way down. So I've been there and I rode through British Columbia, but it doesn't feel like I got to do it because I didn't see any of it.
That said, though, I think maybe the most beautiful scenery we saw the whole time was on our way down from Prudhoe Bay. That was the Salmon Glacier, right outside of Hyder, Alaska, the world's friendliest ghost town. That's an experience because you're riding from Canada and you just start going west, hit a little town there, and then there's a sign that says, "Welcome to Alaska." There's no border post or anything. It looks like there was one at one point, but they should have long since shut it down, and suddenly you're in the States again. Found one person in the whole town to talk to, and he told us where the glacier was.
He looked like Santa Claus and he had a big gun on his hip.
Rode out to the glacier, and that was the most stunning scene, I think, of the whole trip.
Huh. Interesting. It sounds like typical Alaska, though. Somebody walking.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I envision it. Somebody walking around with a gun, some glaciers, some big peaks, occasional moose or grizzly. That's kind of how I picture it.
You're not too far off.
Okay. Adversity, bike problems along the way.
We had numerous flat tires. I blew my fork seal, chains, sprockets.
I had a stuck link on my chain pretty early on. Had to be replaced. It always felt like something was going wrong, but it was nothing ever too major. When we got down to Argentina, my timing had skipped somehow and was off by a tooth or two. And we only discovered that when we ran out of gas in the middle of nowhere, about 100 miles earlier than we should have run out of gas. That was exciting. But no, nice thing about KLRs is they're pretty easy to work on, pretty easy to fix. And
With the help of YouTube.
yes, everybody has done it. So it's easy because everybody has made a video about it.
Where would we be without YouTube?
Exactly.
We would still be on the road, I'll tell
The
you.
other- did you guys have to rejet your KLRs at all along the way, just based on where you were or temps, changes in the temps or anything?
Did we have to what?
Did you have to rejet the carbs at all along the way?
We didn't touch them.
Right on.
I think had we been more involved and knew how to do that, it might have been a good idea at some points, but they kept cruising.
Kept cruising. Not like you were chasing performance or anything, right?
Right.
And there are points in Peru when you're spending a couple days above 14,000 feet that you really think, oh, I should probably do something about this.
But you're breathing so hard, too, that you don't want to go pull the bike apart.
Yeah. They're long days.
Are they? Interesting. I think about the highest I've been is 11. Is that quite a difference for you guys being up at 14? Is it hard on you?
It was a big difference. We have a couple 14ers here in Colorado that you can ride to the top of, but it's kind of a novelty thing. You ride up, take some pictures, and then ride down instead of riding for 3 days, sleeping, eating, everything above that altitude. And it kind of hit me like a freight train one day, but
Yeah, and we have a little bit of an advantage being here in Colorado, and that we're already a little bit higher, but that's so much higher.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Again, back to that documentary that I watched, they got up around Everest, which, we're talking 15, 16,000 feet around the base there, and I think one or two of the guys ended up having to give it up because the altitude sickness just wore them down over the course of a few days. And, like you said, you guys probably got a little jump start on it being in Colorado, but if you're hanging out around sea level, that could be a problem, just jumping up to 14 and riding for 3 or 4 days.
it hit me hard. But that was also the coolest part of, I think, Peru, is that we went from sea level to that high in like 1 day's ride.
Wow.
So you can imagine the curvy roads we got to enjoy.
A few switchbacks.
Yeah.
More adversity. I think I saw that one of you lost your passport. Is that true?
That was me.
That is true.
that's the story of maybe our longest day. Not mileage-wise or time-wise, but, man, that was an exciting day. We started in Peru on one side of Lake Titicaca, and just getting to the Bolivian border, we must have ridden through a dozen roadblocks because there was some protest that day and everybody was unhappy. So they all threw rocks in the middle of the road and were burning tires, and there were like 10-ton girders across the road. Still don't understand how they did that, but finally made it to one border stop after riding across a tire wire fire that nearly punctured the tires. Got to the Bolivian border. The first border stop, they can't issue us a visa because we're American citizens, and apparently they don't have internet at this border stop. So we had to go to a different one. Get there. They finally issue our visas. We can get across the border. And we just decided to book it to La Paz because we were already running pretty late that day. And in our hurry, I forgot to zip up my chest pocket where I kept my passport that day. And it fell out.
It fell out.
Oops. So we got to La Paz, and when the hotel manager asked, "Oh, welcome, may I see your passports?" I put my hand to my chest, and my heart just dropped. I knew right away that it was gone. So we spent the night looking through photos, looking through our selfies, and sure enough, Ian found one that he had taken of himself with me in the background, and you can just faintly see the blue outline of my passport on my chest, like actively falling out of my pocket. So the next day we went back to a lake crossing. We asked the boatman, we asked the boatman's friends, we tore apart his boat, asked all the border officials, couldn't find it anywhere. So we finally went back to exactly that spot where we had taken the photo, and Eagle Eyes Ian found it on the side of the road, about 5 yards off the side of the road in a pile of trash. Unbelievable.
Man.
Still can't believe it. I'm not still stuck in Bolivia.
I was going to say, you'd still be there. Most likely. That's crazy. What were any of those border crossings sketchy? I mean, was that uncomfortable?
Yes. I think not having done it before, Mexico is a breeze because you kind of just roll across the border. Obviously, Canada's no big deal. But our first real encounter with a border was Guatemala. And that was the sketchiest border of them all, I think.
I think so.
At least the place that we did it.
It was like, so you come up on the Mexican side, and there are all these guys in red T-shirts who are like fixers. So they'll help you do your paperwork. They'll change your money, and hopefully they don't scam you in the meantime. And they're running up alongside you, trying to get you to choose them to help you. But in doing so, they get kind of aggressive, and they were like kind of grabbing at our bikes and, grabbing at my arms. So I was uncomfortable, to say the least. And then we get off the bikes. It's 1,000,000 degrees. Go in, check out of Mexico. And there's about maybe a quarter-mile stretch that reminded me of like a Fast and Furious scene of like the underground trade of something. And there was loud music and cars and lights and people just running around,
yelling at you. And
everyone wants to change your money. Everyone wants to help you out. And in that chaos, you can get pretty turned around.
So you never knew you had so many friends in Guatemala, did you?
Never knew it, no. Everyone's your friend when you get to the border.
Huh.
But I think that was our craziest border. But normally there were always some guys trying to help you out, even when you say no. And then also, as Americans, we think of crossing the border, it should be pretty efficient, and you show your papers here, and then you go there, and then you're done. But there were so many places where we had to go, make some crazy amount of photocopies that it seems like they just made up, and then go back to this other building, and then check in here and get a stamp, and then go get another photocopy of the new stamp. And so some of them were just wildly inefficient, which then in turn made them crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that was mostly Central America. Once you got to South America, things got way easier, and I don't think we needed a photocopier the rest of South America. Central America, I mean, they must have cut down a forest a day for all the photocopies you needed.
Or a rainforest today, at least.
Exactly.
Navigation, how'd you guys make your way?
With our iPhones.
Yeah, we had Ian brought a GPS mostly for emergencies, but for navigation day to day, we just used iPhones. I have Sprint and somehow had global service. I didn't even know this until we got on the trip. So that helped, but no, just a couple apps. We used iOverlander and Maps.me, which are both downloadable data sets, and you can use those to get just about anywhere you need to. That paired with a charger on the bike, and that's all the GPS you really need. Unless your phone breaks, of course, which is, it happens.
It happens. Yeah, no, I carry a GPS as a spare myself, but I like to navigate with the phone. I can see really good, and I mean, I think the maps are as good as anything, like you said, and for the most part, it's free. So,
right, that was a big thing for us.
And having the Sprint service, you're able to stay in touch with your family along the way pretty seamlessly, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not great service, but you get, I think, 25 cents a minute for calling, and then free text and free low-speed data. Don't know how that happened, but sure enough, that was a nice perk of Sprint. And yeah, I had service in every country we went to.
Wow. Nice plug for Sprint. Long ride, over 5 months, right? Is there ever a day out there where you just wanted to call it, mail it in, grab a beer, get something hot to eat, fly back home?
There were a lot of days.
Yeah, it's a romantic idea.
Every day.
I'm down to it. I mean, there are a lot of hard days.
Well, I think for me, there were a lot of parts of days where I was like, this really sucks. And then, we would get into a curvy road, or the rain would clear, or I'd have some great chicken and rice. I don't know, whatever it was that kind of reminded me, all right, no, this is really freaking cool. But there were definitely a few days where I was like, mail it in. I'm done.
You want to talk about the first time we looked at each other and said, let's go home?
Was that Argentina?
Yeah.
I took a tumble. My bike took a little dirt nap with me on top of it. And long story short, we were cruising along, and we had gone through about 1.5 million of these little water crossings. But we're in the desert, so they were only for like flash flood situations. And we came across one of them that had really slow moving water in it. And so I hit it perpendicular like I had all the other water crossings. But it was so slow that there was moss growing underneath it. And so it was super slippery, and my front wheel went. And then I fought it for about 70 yards, hit the asphalt, went into the dirt on the side of the road, and thankfully there was no cliff or barrier. It was just flat desert.
He skidded for about 45 yards.
Yeah. And then I hit the dirt myself, got up. Thankfully, I'm totally fine. My bike just needed a little hammering back into place, and it's totally fine. But that was definitely a moment where it was like, all right, it's been a great ride, but I'm tired and I do not want to get back on this bike. And I think we were about 2.5 hours from anything in either direction. So I thankfully didn't really have a choice, and I just got back on and we rode, but it took me a few days to get back into the groove, that's for sure.
Hey, speaking of that, did you guys get caught out in any like really weird weather, really cold? I mean, we talked about the heat, but flash flooding, monsoon type stuff?
Central America, I would call monsoons. They wouldn't, but for us, Colorado, it was just crazy hard rain for like 4 or 5 days straight. and you're totally soaked when you wake up in the morning, and you just have to put your wet gear back on.
Yeah. At that point, we were riding with a couple of other guys. So there were, I think, 5 people in one hotel room. We all tried to hang up our gear to dry it out overnight, and with that much wet gear, nothing dried out. It was just a wet, sopping mess in the hotel room.
Stinky dudes.
Oh, we smelled bad.
So go ahead.
I think for me, the coolest weather we saw was crossing from Argentina to Chile. Right at the Portillo ski resort, it was snowing and thundering at the same time.
I've never seen that.
That was just kind of neat.
So you guys hooked up with some other guys that were riding the same route toward the end, or?
Yeah, at various times. I think the first other guy we met up with was in Baja. I think we found him on Instagram, and Ian said, "Hey, do you want to ride with us?" So we rode all of Baja with him. We met some more guys on the ferry from Baja to the mainland. Rode with them for a day or two, and then split up. And then we met up with them again, or some of them again, in Central America. I think we rode all of Central America with John and Roger.
John the Englishman and Roger the Brazilian.
Rode with them until, Colombia and Ecuador, respectively. And then we rode with a German couple. Oh, so there's no road between Panama and Colombia. So you get on just about every biker who does this rides the Stahlrad. And it's this 100-year-old sailboat that takes 21 motorcycles and motorcyclists from Panama to Colombia and Colombia to Panama. So met a whole bunch of people there. Hung out with them in Cartagena for a while. We rode with a couple of from Germany through some of Peru and Bolivia. But yeah, I think it was kind of shocking to me. I thought we were the only ones doing this, and get on Instagram and get on the boat and realize, oh, wait, there's actually a fair number of people who do this. I mean, it's still not common, but
it's still insane to do it.
It's still crazy. Yeah. Okay. Right on. Talked about kind of one of the most beautiful spots. Do you guys remember like a particular day that was your favorite?
Ooh. That's a great question. I think maybe pulling up to the Salmon Glacier was my favorite in Alaska, because it was kind of a boring road to get there until we turned west. And then we somewhat legally crossed back into the United States. But it felt wrong. There was no border, so it felt cool. And then we came across this stunning glacier, and we found a little 2-track around it and was riding that. It felt like we were in the Himalayas. The mountains were just that big and pretty. Or pulling into Buenos Aires for me after a 14-hour day. And my bike quit out about a block from their Times Square equivalent. So Ian pushed me down an alley to jumpstart it. And then we got there and it was all good. But that for me, that was kind of a good last hurrah.
Awesome. Another question, and probably one of my last ones. What did you guys learn while you were out there?
Oh boy, I've been thinking a lot about this the last couple of weeks, but I think my biggest takeaway, and this goes for day to day and bigger picture, but nothing ever quite goes like you plan it, but it's all about how you look at it. And it all works out in the end. And that's maybe bigger than you were looking for, but as it applies to my life right now, I think that's pretty applicable. I did just quit a job. Looking forward to med school possibly. So I think my road to get there has been a little curvier than most. But you know what? if you ride motorcycles, the curves are what make it special. So yeah, I would say my takeaway is nothing ever goes like you plan it, but it always works out.
Yeah, that's a great answer. What about you? Did you learn anything?
I think I learned most about people, which is kind of unique because we spent so much time riding together, but you're really alone when you're riding a bike. But the people we got to meet along the way, the people we traveling with Ian, man, I learned a lot of lessons, good and bad, from him. But for me, it was really about the people along the way.
And you guys are still friends, so apparently it worked out, right?
We're still friends. There were a few days when we got back that I just didn't want to see him.
Yeah, that's fair. We I think it was about a week and a half that we just didn't. We actually texted it quite a bit.
Yeah, there were some texts,
We
but
didn't see each other.
Oh, you guys are out riding to just texting each other, communicating through text. Oh, you mean when you got back? Okay.
yeah, when we got home.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say that would be weird, but
No, it wasn't that bad in the end.
yeah, both great answers. It's amazing how something like this can kind of, shape the next few years or your entire life. I mean, it's cool that you guys got it out. I mean, I consider you guys a lot younger than me. I'm mid-30s, but it's cool that you got out and did something that you're going to remember forever now, because you just don't know, what the future holds, right?
Right. That was part of my selling point to Ian. I said, life's short, man. Go for a 6-month motorbike trip.
Yeah, that's the line I always try to use on people too.
It's a tough sell.
It is.
I was not actually the first person to say yes. I was just the first person to actually follow through.
That's true.
Big picture, are you guys thinking about something else in the future, or you settling in back home for now?
Oh man, we thought about the next ride every single day, which is crazy.
There we go.
I think the next trip will hopefully be something a little closer to home, but something like the Colorado BDR, or going down to Moab. For us, those would be great, because then we can not spend 5 months on the road. Also, I don't have any more money, so we got to start working sometime.
Yeah, we need to get on that. Finance the next trip. But yeah, I think, even just doing up to Alaska for a month would be, there's so much to see in Alaska, or down to Baja. But we need to try and settle into our lives for a little while before we can think about the next big trip.
Right on. And yeah, you talk about some of those routes like the Colorado BDR. That's going to seem like such a breeze for you guys, having saddled up 5 months in a row there.
I think getting on the bike every day will be easier, but I'm sure we can come up with some new problems on that trip.
For sure. All right, guys. Other than your Instagram account and your Facebook, and the Instagram is at Los Panamericanos, is there any other thing we should be looking at, or are you guys going to do some sort of wrap up, or are you just moving on?
That's a very good question. I think right now I need to get back on posting some to the Instagram. We have so many photos, and luckily I just so my computer and hard drive were actually stolen at the airport our last day of the trip, so I lost a ton of footage.
Damn.
And a lot of photos. But I'm looking back today. I just replaced it. A lot of them got saved to the cloud. So I think that's the easiest one. Is I'll keep posting to the Instagram and the Facebook, but need to think about how to properly wrap this up.
Cool. All right, guys. That's all I got for you. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much, John.
All right, man. You guys take care. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
One more time, Ian and Ian, thank you for coming on the Ben Motorcycle Adventures podcast and sharing your motorcycle adventure, your stories with us. That one was simply amazing, and I think we can all relate to just kind of picking things up, going on short notice, and going on a crazy adventure like that. Very cool. And another thing is, if I'm not mistaken, you guys mentioned that this is the first time you had gotten together after returning to Colorado to actually kind of discuss your adventure and your travels. So really cool for me to be a part of that. I'm glad our guests get to hear it. And you know what? If you guys go on the next adventure or go on another adventure, we'll definitely have to tie out in the future. But, thank you for being a part of the podcast. We're really lucky to hear your stories. Quick plug for our website, benmotorcycleadventures.com. As always, you can visit our blog, listen to any of the previous episodes of the podcast, or check out some of the written content that I have there. Most recently, I did a review on the Golden Tire GT 723R Adventure Rally Raid tire as a dual sport tire, and I'm not ashamed to admit that particular little blog post has gotten more traffic than any page on my website ever. It's getting about 100 hits a day, so you might want to check that out before you buy your next set of dual sport or adventure motorcycle tires. Just a clean, honest, unbiased review of that particular set of tires. So again, you might want to check it out. All right, just about time for me to get out of here. Next episode of the podcast, we'll be talking to Norley at Itchy Boots Travel on Instagram, Itchy Boots Travel on YouTube. She is traveling on a Royal Enfield Himalayan from Delhi to Malaysia. So she's going to kind of tell us a little bit about the adventure that she's on. So expect that for the next episode of the podcast. And as always, make sure you review and subscribe to the podcast. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.